He got transported to another world. He was exiled to his far-off wastelands by a goddess, however. It turns out to not be all that for him. We start things off the meeting. Misumi Makoto lamented on how genetic ice guy fairy tale usually goes, but he's found out firsthand that even if you get the sick eye, it might not be exactly as you've always fantasized. He explains it was just an ordinary peaceful day in his life when he was suddenly and unexpectedly put in the process of being transported to another world by the gods Huki army to become a hero. This is due to an arrangement his parent T.S., who had also been easy card in order to come to Japan, had made, was an otherworld's goddess. However, once he actually meets who said goddess, she seems too ugly to even talk to her and banishes Makoto to the far-off wastelands of a world which is infested with non-humans and monsters, while only bestowing him the ability to understand all languages. As he's pushed out of the presence and full into his death, Suki army comes in clutch, saving him and explaining the walls to live his life in Japan. Makoto's abilities were held back, but now that he's in this world they should be unleashed. And he should be quite helpful, and when they'll be free to do whatever it is he pleases. After quite literally crash landing and being completely fine, he wanders the wasteland for several days, when he finds and saves a young girl named Emma from a two-headed wolf monster, which too is shock. Kills easily. Explains that she was supposed to be sacrificed to the dragon Goshin in order to dispel the fog around villages for their crops can grow again. She then takes him to her village when Makoto begins to learn magic and also being helped out so much. Makoto decides to confront and distortion FO are the village. As they fight, Shin trusts Makoto inside an illusion of a happy memory of his, but then should begin to examine the code, does all the memories, and becomes intrigued by his life in Japan. As we go to break the illusion, he is shocked to find that Shin has folded like a lawn chair, offering to make a contract with them in order to become his familia. Makoto agrees, and they form a contract, with Shin transforming into a stacked Sumerigo who is looking forward to the future together, because the quickly discovers though that the so-called dragon god Shin has become completely and utterly obsessed with memories of Japan, and basically turned into a anti-Japanese history buff. Makoto then returns and forms the old that he defeated Shun, who office let the oldest living hill alternate dimension she can make, known as the demi-plane, which now strangely looks like Japanese countryside. Shin continues invading a Makoto's memories and demands hey, figure out how to build the television, which you can store his memories on. Makoto, however, decides to discover more about his parents who were born into this world. Sometime later, Shin appears with an injured wolf, explaining that the dimension is under attack by a spider known as the Blah CK disaster that is cursed with eternal hunger. The fight begins and Makoto manages to completely obliterate the spider, but collapses after exhausting himself, and the spider then regenerates. The spider then declares that this extreme violence has satisfied as masochistic Kongo and wants to stay with Makoto forever. She is freaky. Chin then suggests that despite a former contracted Makoto like she did in order to gain human forma, green wish, and then perform the ritual. Makoto's consent apparently not being needed. I don't think that would hold up in court, but anyway, Makoto awake NS finding that he has a new equally voluptuous servant. Hey, this ice guy thing's looking up, dude. What are you complaining about? The rescued dwarf is revealed to be Baron, an elder dwarf capable of creating rare artifacts, and much like the old looks Baron, also moved his entire village in the Shin's dimension. Shannon, the spot of the request. Personal names from Makoto 3 renamed Shin to Shin Tomo. Off the legendary female summer item goes in a name despite a Medio. Makoto also finds out the while he was unconscious Damon Mayo went out recruiting as villages now populated by orcs. DW Arvs, Miss Lizards, and Alex Bite is Makoto then leaves Timer's dimension in hope of finding actual human people. However, when he finds them, they quickly square up and begin to attack him. Off to going home and soaking for a bit. Total explains the Makoto is pure Sigma energy is so strong that people probably mistaking them for a demon lord. Makoto then spends months learning common The language humans speak is the go to start him every language except the most common one and the two. Wards craft him items which can suppress his aura. They then ult into the human village, posing as merchants and register at the Adventurers Guild with Tomo and me smash records by being 4 times as powerful as the Nextra dismember, whereas Makoto ranks level 1 weaker than a child due to high suppressed or a hit to my loans to the dragon she knew was killed by an adventurer named Sophia. As they settle into a room at the end, they discuss help people have begun following them after tell me what's in the wagon in case of attack on the call telling me are approached by a younger taken aback to the end the girl ring on explains that a Sista tower disappeared recently. Meanwhile Tomo confronts these approaching the wagon and delicately disarms them. She accidentally kills 3 and captures the full written sketches as sister and Makoto determines from the thief's memories that group holding her captive and sends me and Tomo to retrieve a. Makoto begins to get concerned about the similarities between the Gil sketched and a girl named Hasegawa he knew in Japan. It doesn't take long for me and Tomo to locate Toll and hook up the Mills ace. The current strongest adventurer in the town. Mills is also the secret leader of the thieves, and reveals the demon lord recently approached the city and the county has been placed on its head, so he wants me into most help to hunt it, not realizing that his Damon Lloyd is actually just Makoto. Elsewhere Reed on sneaks away and tells the thieves that Makoto's wagon was full of expensive fruit, but he's already sold it. The thieves then insists that she steal Koda's gold to pay for Toll's debts, but Remain decides that she can't steal from someone who was so nice to me and to more than easily defeat Mills is anti a gang of thieves and pretty much the entire settlement by trying to compete on who defeated the most enemies. Redundant reunites with Tola, who is practically identical to Hasegawa, apart from her hair color. Willfully convenient for him. Makoto praises me on Tumblr for rescuing Tella and Dr. Little punishment for destroying the town, doing so to my old as everyone's memories, so the world believes in months the whole destroyed the town instead of them as they make their way to the next clue. This is Tennessee. Each Makoto's informed the us to re-register with the Adventurers Guild there, as the ones that Syria the town, though Justin was destroyed in danger of another calamity happening to the next town. Makoto tricks Tomo into training alone in the wilderness just like the Japan Summer I did. Who is she takes hook, line, and sinker after they reach the town of Siege and the code to read registers. With this level of 1 he celebrates with a group of adventurers he rode into town with Louisa the elven archer, Hazel the human alchemist, and Renee on the dwarf priest knight, because I was thinking about selling the ruby eyes which were harvested from a few creatures on their way travel into the city to the Rembrandt Trading Company for request. But Total warns him that they have a pretty terrible reputation. The next day they make their way back to Tumor's dimension to learn about the progress that's been made, where he finds of the Elks, but as a settling up in the mountains the dwarves to begin constructing their own buildings and the missiles. It's a clearing farmlands. Well, the Oaks have begun constructing the cost of his own personal council, one of the tools. Then fun McCall to and give him a merchant's outfit to further suppress his aura. He's level 1 dude. I don't think he needs too much more suppression, but when he wears it, it starts to disintegrate as his magic is still too strong. Makoto then discovers that anything grown in the demi-plane becomes way more potent than normal sometime later because it takes the ruby eyes Rembrandt, and while talking to the manager finds it difficult to work with until the man Ager Patrick Rembrandt realizes Makoto has the ruby eyes and apologizes for being rude. Patrick then happily reveals the ruby eyes make ambrosia, which is a cue of his wife and daughters who were caused by a witch doctor. Off to its Makoto goes to register as a merchant and ought to find in out there is a written exam involved. He easily aces it as the mathematics and more in line with basic middle school levels. The second test, however, is a bit trickier, where else to find and gather for dangerous items. But he finds a bit of a loophole which states you can substitute items of equal or higher value for these dangerous items, and using the ruby eyes and all the various items he's gathered over his time here, he does just that, becoming a fully registered merchant. In approaches, he wonders if he can get in contact with Tomorrow as he hasn't talked to her in a few days. And we cut to her absolutely demolishing various cuddly little creatures out in the beauties. She might just be taking this a bit too seriously. The next day Makoto returns to the Demi playing great plans to set up a hidden portal to trick traveling merchants, making them think that the Demi playing it's a hidden city where they will then trade the demi-plane items and that the merchants return harm, creating a demand for demi-plane product stocks. He then finds Tomo, arguing with me as it seems the Mayo has become completely addicted to Makoto's memories of anime and children's cartoons. It's the same now, is the Japanese history fanatic and the budding weave in his body. Nice. Later that night Tomo and Meal were confused as to why Makoto chooses to sleep alone rather than pick one of them to sleep with. It's actually really good point, and they both decide they must come up with some kind of seduction plan. Hazel the alchemist and agrees to the request Makoto made, which was to help brew the ambrosia Patrick was needing the next morning. As Hazel meets with Makoto an adventure which is close by, and says they need to gather as many adventures as they can in order to stop whatever it is Patrick is doing. Flushing back we see that Patrick secretly had the witch doctor, who caused his family killed in the present. Hazel, the alchemist and brews the ambrosia. Makoto is able to hold down Patrick's wife Lisa, who has become a complete monster due to kill us so they can successfully administer the ambrosia, curing his wife. They then continue on to Q both of Patron's daughters as well after Makoto returns to Tomo and Mayo. But then the trio quickly attacked by the adventure names Line Lost Today and his gang due to the dealings with Patrick. Ultimaking Shomi sits out of this fight, so they don't get a repeat of lost time. They easily defeat all 20 members and Dr. questioning Lime. They discover that he only wanted to put us sleeping because some Patrick's wife and daughters as revenge for Patrick preventing several adventurers who displeased him from finding for the work in the city, many of whom then died later on as the quest would too difficult for them to handle, and they didn't have the experience. He claims he had no idea what the witch doctor put such a dangerous because of them, that would turn them into months. It is off to its. Line goes to Patrick and apologizes profusely for what happened to him and shoot his wife and daughters. Recovering quite well he allows him to live but states that his adventuring work will be heavily limited from here on out. London explains his intention to retire from adventuring altogether. Off to its members who had looked in the Lime's memories and seeing that he sends his wages for adventure into the orphanage where he grew up. High is him as a spy for her to give him like a ton of forged by the dwarves. Meanwhile, despite the gratitude Patrick shares of Mac Odo, business comes first, and he considers what to do about him setting up what seems to be a competing trading company in the city. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. It only takes a second, and it really helps me out.